Alright, so in the early stages of the NFL offseason, it seems like there's a chance that the Eagles could make some crazy moves, as not only could the Birds have a real chance to trade Bryce Huff this offseason, but with all the uncertainty at edge rusher moving forward, there's a lot of different options that the Eagles could look at to address the position. Meanwhile, we got a surprising update on Nolan Smith that shows just how tough he really is, while A.J. Brown sent an important message to the Eagles as the quest for a repeat has officially begun. So we're going to talk about that and all the other latest Eagles news starting right now. Hey guys, welcome to the Philly Fan 21 channel. If you're new, I'm Evan and I cover all things Philadelphia Eagles. And let's start off with some breaking news from late last week, as after it was announced that Cam Jurgens had gotten surgery to alleviate some back nerve pain that he had played through both during the Super Bowl and the NFC Championship game, it was also revealed that edge rusher Nolan Smith got offseason surgery as well, as on Friday, Ian Rappaport reported, quote, Eagles pass rusher Nolan Smith tore his triceps in the Super Bowl 59 win over the Chiefs and played through it in the second half, per me and Mike Garafolo. Smith, who performed in the second half on one arm, had surgery on Wednesday and will be ready to go for the 2025 season. Now, for starters, that's obviously good news that he's going to be ready for the season, and we're definitely hoping for a quick and smooth recovery for Nolan. But that said, the fact that Nolan Smith played through this injury is just absolutely insane. Because, I mean, just think about how serious a torn tricep is. I mean, Brandon Graham had that very same injury happen in late November, and it was reported then that he was going to be out for the rest of the season. And obviously, it was kind of a miracle that he was able to return for the final game being the Super Bowl, but typically, that injury is a 6-month recovery. So, the fact that Nolan Smith was able to play through that, again, it's just crazy, because it takes some serious toughness and mental strength to play through something that serious. But at the same time, I mean, it's really no surprise because, for one, it was the Super Bowl, so the stakes don't get any bigger than that, and obviously you want to be out there. But also, if we know anything about Nolan Smith, it's that he loves football and he's one tough dude. I mean, look at the post he made to his Instagram story after the news came out, as he dropped the rather famous quote, "Pain is temporary, it may last for a minute or an hour or even a year, but eventually it will subside. But if I quit, however, it will last forever." So, I mean, man, how can you not love that? Like, that's just the perfect mentality to have. And to add on to that, even with the injury, Nolan Smith still managed to play well, as he had 4 pressures in the game, and he really made plays all night long. And it also didn't slow him down during the post-game celebration or the Super Bowl parade either, obviously. So, once again, shout out to Nolan Smith for playing through that, and really, shout out to all the guys who played through serious injuries in the Super Bowl, and they all really played well, because in addition to Nolan's performance, Landon Dickerson obviously played through a pretty serious knee injury that took him out during the NFC Championship, but he allowed just 2 pressures in 74 snaps versus the Chiefs. And then obviously, Cam Jurgens also played through a pretty serious back injury, and he allowed just 1 pressure in 67 snaps. So, I mean, all I gotta say is, the Eagles have some warriors, man, and I honestly think that's one of the things that made this team so special, because in addition to all the talent they had, these were also guys that were willing to fight for the game and fight for each other. And that's, I think, one of those things that can take a team from very good to great. But speaking of guys having serious injuries, we switch our focus to A.J. Brown, as if you remember, he was playing through a knee injury early in the playoffs and also towards the end of the regular season, and on the Kicking It With D podcast, he revealed that it actually may have been a little more serious than we initially thought.
Recovering, man. It's been a tough year. Like, people don't understand. Like, nobody really understand. Like, I say late in the year, man. I had banged my knee real bad, and so I'm getting my knee drained like twice a week, and people don't even know like what going into playing these games, and that's why like I shout out to my teammates, bro, because you know that was picking up the load in practice, because I really wasn't practicing. I was out there, but I really wasn't practicing. I was just playing on Sunday. And the NFC title game, I got healthy. And it was all she wrote after that.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that AJ turned the corner in that NFC title game, and we're lucky he did, because that's really the point where the Eagles' entire offense took off, as the Birds, of course, put up 55 points and 40 points in their final 2 postseason games, compared to 23 and 28 in the previous 2. And AJ was obviously a huge part of that, as after having just 3 catches for 24 yards and no touchdowns combined in the wild card and divisional rounds, he had 6 catches for 96 yards and a touchdown in the NFC Championship, and he followed that up with 3 catches for 43 yards and a crucial touchdown in the Super Bowl. So again, safe to say, AJ getting healthy was huge for both him and the Birds offense, and shout out to him for toughing it out and playing through that injury in the first place, because we know the Eagles offense is just completely different with him in there versus when he's out. But staying with A.J. Brown, he also sent a very important message to the Eagles while on that same podcast, as now obviously Philly is trying to repeat, but things are going to be very different this time around, as instead of being the Hunters like they were this year, they now have a huge target on their back and will enter the 2025 season as the Hunted. And A.J. Brown knows that because of that, they're going to have to adapt, as he said, quote, "It has to change. It has to evolve. I don't know what wrinkles would look like, but we have to find ways to get better, you know? It's a lot of fame out there on us. We just won, and guys are going to be coming at us. We're not the hunting anymore. We are the hunted, and we have to get better." So, personally, I love that mentality from A.J. Brown, because, I mean, if there's one thing we know about this league, it's that teams have to adapt, or they're going to get left behind real fast. So, I think that's the exact attitude that A.J. and the Eagles are going to have as they're now trying to repeat and start a dynasty of their own. And obviously, that starts here in the offseason, where the Birds are undeniably going to make a ton of moves that could help determine their success this upcoming season. And one move that I'm sure a lot of Eagles fans would love to see them make is to trade the overpaid and underperforming Bryce Huff. The issue, however, would be finding a trade partner that would actually be willing to give up any kind of assets to bring him in. And while that may be difficult, it has been suggested and speculated multiple times in recent days that the Falcons could maybe be a destination, considering that they do need an edge rusher, and also their new defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich was the DC with the Jets back when Huff was there and having success. So the thought is that maybe with a reunion, Ulbrich could get the best out of Huff once again and get him back to producing like he was back in 2023 when he had 10 sacks. Now, if you ask me, if the Eagles could find a way to get a mid-round or maybe even later on pick, maybe just even years down the line, while also even more importantly getting off that contract, I think that'd be a smart move. Now, how likely is that? I don't know, just considering that this is all really just speculation at this point, and Eagles GM Howie Roseman also did say the week before the Super Bowl that he stubbornly still believes in Huff, citing the lack of production from Javon Hargrave in his first year in Philly before exploding in years 2 and 3, and also saying that Huff has unique ability in his body. That said, if you could find a way to trade Huff post June 1st, that would save the Eagles $4.3 million in cap space this year, and just getting off that contract in general would be a win. So, I mean, I don't know. This is definitely a situation that I think is worth monitoring as the offseason goes on, but I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts. Could the Eagles actually trade Bryce Huff this offseason? And if they did, what kind of return do you think that they could get for him? Now, that said, whether Huff stays or goes, the Birds definitely have an interesting situation at edge rusher that's going to play out this offseason, as obviously Josh Sweat likely is going to sign with another team in free agency, while Brandon Graham probably is headed for retirement. So really the only two guys that you know are going to be there are Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt. And I really do think that both these guys have very bright futures and both are going to become great players, but still, there's no doubt that if things do play out this way, which is the way that it seems like it's going right now, the Birds are going to have to acquire another edge rusher this offseason, and they could do that in a number of ways. Now, I've already talked about the possibility of a crazy trade for Myles Garrett, which I definitely don't think is impossible, but if the Eagles don't want to give up a huge amount of draft capital and also not break the bank, which you would have to do if you're going to trade for Garrett, then they have a couple of other options, as they could go the draft route, which personally I would love, and with the Combine coming up this week, we're definitely going to talk more about that very soon. But in addition to that, there are also a number of intriguing free agent options that the Eagles could look at to fill the void as well. And look, there's definitely more guys than I can even mention in this video, and we'll definitely go more in depth into some of these guys individually as the offseason goes on. But just to name a few of them, you got guys like Matthew Judon coming off a good season with the Falcons. You got Dante Fowler from the Commanders, who just had 10.5 sacks. You have Patrick Jones from the Vikings, who had 7 sacks in less than 500 snaps this season. Also, there's Demarcus Lawrence from the Cowboys, who obviously Eagles fans know very well. He's obviously on the older side and coming off an injury, but he can still play. You got Azeez Ojulari from the Giants, who is just 24 years old and has been really productive when he's on the field for New York. It's just that he has been limited with injuries and he's missed a lot of games. And then in addition to Judon, who I previously mentioned, you also got some other bigger name guys as well, like Chase Young from the Saints, who actually, he was just mocked to go to the Eagles on a big $70 million contract by Jacob Kamenker of USA Today. But personally, while I understand that Young is coming off a somewhat productive season and he's still just 25 years old, I just don't really think he fits in very well with the Eagles culture, as there have been instances where he's really not giving full effort, and I also just don't think he's worth that big of a contract, and at that point, you might as well just bring back Josh Sweat, but still, Young could be an option theoretically. So again, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the edge rusher position looks when this offseason is over for the Eagles. Personally, I like to see them draft somebody and also maybe add a guy like Azeez Ojulari in free agency who probably wouldn't break the bank, or maybe a guy that'd be even cheaper than that. But that said, what do you guys think? How should the Eagles address the edge rusher position this offseason? But now, moving on, the Birds also got some other good news late last week, as with the Saints hiring Brandon Staley to be their new defensive coordinator, that means that Eagles DB coach Christian Parker will remain in Philly. And that's amazing news because Parker is a phenomenal coach and one of the bright young defensive minds in the league today, and he obviously really helped bring along the young guys this year in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and was a big reason that they had so much success. And on top of that, he's also a big reason why the Eagles' overall pass defense was so good this year too. So again, it's definitely great that Christian Parker is going to be staying in Philly, and I feel like just having another year for him to spend with both Mitchell and DeJean specifically is going to end up being super valuable. And speaking of guys in the secondary, we switch over to Darius Slay, who got emotional as he was just honored in his hometown of Brunswick, Georgia with a parade, and he also received the key to the city. So I mean, shout out to him, he definitely deserves it. And with his future in Philly being uncertain right now, I'm definitely super appreciative of everything that he's done during his time with the Eagles, and I wish him nothing but the best moving forward. That said, I definitely hope he stays in Philly for his final season next year, so you guys already know that I'm going to be continuing to cover that situation, just as well as all the other Eagles news throughout this entire offseason as well. So if you don't want to miss any of that, then make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, drop a like down below to show some support, because it really does help me out a ton. Let's see if we can get to 700 likes on today's video, and also again, leave a comment down below just regarding anything that I talked about in this video. And if you want to watch another video going over the Darius Slay situation, as well as a lot of other free agency news, you can check this one out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.